My name is Arjun Mehta, and I used to believe that a full calendar was a badge of honor. Every single slot filled, back to back, a beautiful mosaic of productivity. I thought it meant I was essential. Turns out I was about to learn a very, very hard lesson.
I mean, look at it. It was a work of art, really, a masterpiece of mismanagement. You had your client calls, your sprint planning, your budget reviews, every minute accounted for. I wasn't just busy, I felt like I was winning at the game of work. At least, that's the story I was telling myself.
But when you're running that fast on the corporate hamster wheel, something's got to give. And for me, that something was always my team. I'd even justify it to myself, Oh, this client call, that's real work. The one-on-one with Neha, we can do that anytime. It felt like a luxury I just couldn't afford.
And then, a Slack message from Karthik, one of my best engineers. A simple request, got 10 minutes? Just 10 minutes. But I glanced at my wall of meetings and went into what I call efficiency mode. Swamped, send me a doc. It feels so productive, doesn't it? Turning a quick chat into homework. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, Karthik, being the absolute pro that he is, did exactly what I asked. He didn't just jot down a few notes. Oh no, he wrote a 12-page document. I'm talking a full-blown thesis on this API redesign. He must have spent hours on it, all because I couldn't spare 10 minutes.
And my response to his 12-page masterpiece? 3 comments. 3. And they were the kind of vague, useless comments you leave when you've skimmed something in between meetings. Looks good. Consider performance. I probably spent 6 minutes on a document that took him 6 hours. The gap between his effort and my intention was, well, it was a chasm, and I was about to fall in.
And this right here is where my whole system started to blow up. That beautiful, color-coded calendar wasn't a symbol of my productivity. It was a ticking time bomb. And the first person to call me out on it was my engineer, Priya.
So Priya comes to me, and she's not talking about a bug or a deadline. She wants to talk about her future, her career path. The very thing we were supposed to talk about in all those one-on-ones that I kept canceling. You could just feel the frustration bubbling under the surface.
And then she said it. The line that just stopped me in my tracks. Honestly, I don't feel like I matter as much as your meetings. Wow. It wasn't angry. It was just true. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. My calendar was screaming my priorities to my team, and they were not on it.
And there it was, the real cost of my efficiency. I was about to lose one of my best engineers, not because of the work, not because of the pay, but because I was literally too busy to have a conversation with her.
But wait, it gets better. I went to Karthik trying to understand what was going on, and he just lays it on me, straight up. He said the team had basically adapted to my absence. They'd built workarounds so they didn't have to deal with me. I wasn't a leader, I was a bottleneck they had learned to avoid. I had made myself irrelevant.
So yeah, I was at rock bottom. I went to my mentor, Kavita, and just laid it all out. The canceled meetings, Priya, Karthik. I told her I thought I was being a good manager, but I was actually sabotaging my entire team with my schedule. I wasn't leading anyone. I was just managing my inbox.
Kavita didn't say much at first. She just pulled up her calendar next to mine. On the left, you see my calendar, a nightmare of solid, reactive meetings. And on the right is hers. It was like night and day. There was so much white space and these protected blocks of time called office hours and one-on-ones that were clearly untouchable.
And then she told me something that just completely rewired my brain. She said, Arjun, your real job, your only job really, is to make your team better. Everything else, the budgets, the stakeholder updates, all of that is secondary.
This was the key. See, a client call always feels urgent, right? It's screaming for your attention. But a career conversation with your direct report, that never feels urgent. But it's arguably the most important thing you can do. And Kavita's point was, if you don't fiercely protect the important stuff, the urgent stuff will swallow it whole, every single time.
So Kavita didn't just give me some vague advice. She gave me a concrete, practical framework, a totally new system for triaging my calendar to match my real job, not my old broken idea of what my job was. Look at this. Her framework says that nearly half of a manager's time, 40 to 50%, should be dedicated to people. Not what's left over at the end of the week, but the biggest single chunk. The rest is for strategy and a little bit of unavoidable admin.
So it breaks down like this. First, you have your non-negotiable time. This is for your one-on-ones, your career chats. This time is sacred. Then there's high-value work, actual strategic thinking. Then the necessary but limited stuff, like status updates, which you want to keep tight. And my personal favorite, the stuff you just learned to say no to. It's so liberating.
And she gave me this one simple rule that changed everything. If some urgent client meeting pops up on top of your one-on-one, you don't just cancel the one-on-one, you immediately reschedule it. You move it. That tiny little difference between delete and move sends a huge message. This time with you is still a priority.
That was my big aha moment. I hadn't been a leader. I'd been a glorified calendar administrator. So, armed with this new framework, I went back to my desk and I started making some pretty radical changes.
And this was the result. The before calendar was suffocating and totally reactive. For the after, I literally took a machete to my schedule. I started declining meetings left and right. I blocked out huge chunks of time for my team. My calendar actually started breathing again. It went from being my prison to being a tool that I could actually use to lead.
And you know what? The results happened almost instantly. I took Pri out for coffee, I apologized, and we built a growth plan together. She decided to stay. I said I was sorry to Karthik, and we actually sat down and had an amazing session on his 12-page doc. Suddenly, people were using my new office hours to brainstorm. It wasn't magic. It was just me finally being available.
And that was the biggest lesson I learned through all this. You can't just find time for your people. It's never just lying around. You have to make the time. You have to build a fortress around it and defend it from all the things that are screaming for your attention.
And that brings us to what I now call the time paradox. It's this weird idea that spending an hour just talking to someone on your team with no agenda, it can feel unproductive in the moment. It feels like you're not doing work. But in the long run, it is the most productive thing you can possibly do. It's what keeps your best people, and it's what builds a great team.
So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Pull up your calendar right now. I guarantee there is at least one meeting on there this week that you don't really need to be in. What is the one meeting you can hit decline on right now to make some space for what really matters?